Hello, this is Truby Chiaviello with Primo Magazine, coming to you today from Washington, D.C. Today's date is March the 9th, and the big news is the film Cabrini, which was released last Friday, March 8th, and I had the honor of speaking with the executive producer of the film, Mr. J. Eustace Wolfington, and he really was the catalyst to make this film, Cabrini. So I wanted to come to you today to talk to you about the film, to give you a little bit of what I saw. I was able to see the movie about a month ago, and I posted a review of Cabrini. You can see that on our website at www.onlineprimo.com. Now, let me say this first before we get going now. Please subscribe to our channel. Please like it. And please comment as well, either one way or the other. It's great when we have subscribers to our YouTube channel. And when people give us feedback, this is very good as well. But today, the film it's the rave Cabrini in the Italian press and in the Catholic press as well. And everybody's saying great things about it. I saw the movie and I thought it was very good. And I think it's very important for you, if you're an Italian American, to go see a film about America's first saint. And this is a positive depiction of a historical figure who is a great Catholic, a great Italian American, because she came from Italy and she became an American citizen. But more than that, she's a great American. I would think Mother Cabrini, if I had to list the top 20, top 30 Americans, I would include her in that list because she really transformed America. When the United States had gotten out of its agrarian period, the Wild West was settled. Near the turn of the century, she came, and the focus was now on the urban areas, the cities. And she came to these cities, and she was able to bring needed care for the poor, to clean out the slums. We had some terrible, terrible sections of cities in New York, Chicago, all over the place. And she brought orphanages to them. She brought hospitals, clinics, schools. Tremendous accomplishment on her part. And the film Cabrini focuses really only on her beginning New York experience. There in the Five Points section of Lower Manhattan. This is where she arrived. I think it was 1889 from Italy. She comes there and she comes really to the belly of the beast. You can see it from Jacob Riis's photographs, how the other half lives. Was this set of photographs done by this journalist at the time, a muckraker, if you want to call him, and he really depicted the depraved state of the slums in this area of New York City and elsewhere. Arguably, this is one of the worst sections of any city in the world. It was terrible. No water, no sewage, people living like sardines. And this is where Mother Cabrini goes to start to try and transform this entire area. Now, Mr. Wolfington, the executive producer of the film, he's originally from the Philadelphia area, and he made his career in the leasing of automobiles. So if you ever had to lease a car, you have Mr. Wolfington to thank. So with his success there, he started to get into the film business, and he was a pious Catholic. He told me in an interview when he was growing up in the Philadelphia area, he heard a lot about Mother Cabrini. And one of the first films he helped support and put in place was the film called Bella. That was back in 2006. And it was about a woman with a pregnancy. She's contemplating having an abortion. I mean, that's how the film, the story there. And then last year, he helped to get the film made, Sounds of Freedom. And you can see that movie on Amazon. Well, Cabrini is his newest release. It's now all over the country. Angel Studios is the distributor, and you're seeing it all over the place on the headlines of newspapers for the Italian press and in the Catholic media. The film was directed by Alejandro Monteverdi, and he's from Mexico, and he directed Bella, and he directed Sounds of Freedom. Now, the film stars um, Christiana Della Anna. She plays the young Mother Cabrini, and she looks a lot like her. She's an extraordinary actress. She's originally from Naples. She was in the TV series Gomorrah, and she was recently in the film The King of Laughter. And she's gone from playing a gangster, the mistress of a playwright in The King of Laughter who had been censored in Italy. This is a true story, actually. She was involved in, and now she plays a saint, Mother Cabrini. So you can get an idea about how good of an actress she is. The film also stars David Morse. You remember him from Saint Elsewhere and some other films that he was in, and he plays Archbishop Corrigan. And John Lithgow plays Mayor Gould. This is kind of a generic figure. New York City never had a mayor by the name of Gould, but I think that's from the industrialist who kind of took over New York City at that time. And he plays one of the heavies of the film. He kind of interferes with Mother Cabrini as she's trying to create the orphanages, do the things she needs to do in Lower Manhattan. And Federico Castelluccio, who played Furio in The Sopranos, he plays Senator Badio in Italy. And then Giancarlo Giannini plays Pope Leo the 13th on an extraordinary role. I thought he was very good in this film. And, who knows, he might get a Best Supporting Actor in it, but it's quite good. And according to Mr. Wolfington, he had the idea of making the film about Mother Cabrini back in 2018. Now, he told me that after he got Bella done, and it was 10 years later, so he really didn't want to get back into the film business. But he was visiting a nun in the Washington Heights, the Mother Cabrini shrine that's there. And she told him, why don't you make a film about Mother Cabrini? And there's an Italian production company, she told him, that was interested in making the film. And he met with them. He found them very skilled, of course. They knew a lot about the techniques of filmmaking, but they wanted to interpret the story of Mother Cabrini kind of like a fantasy type situation. And he didn't want that. He wanted to show the gritty reality that she was faced with. So he took it upon himself to make this film. And as always, if you're going to talk about Italian filmmaking, you got to mention Martin Scorsese, because he was involved in this film as well. In the beginning, at least, Martin Scorsese had written a script many decades ago. Originally, he wanted to have Loretta Young star in the film. She was a woman of classic Hollywood period. She had her own TV show back in the 50s. She was in a movie, The Bishop's Wife, most famous. And she was in, you can see it on it's in public domain, a film called The Stranger, starring Orson Welles and Edward G. Robinson. It's a very good film, by the way. And she was also in that movie. So she kind of looked like, I guess, Mother Cabrini. And Martin Scorsese told Mr. Wolfington, if you're going to make a movie about Mother Cabrini, you really got to focus on the actress who's going to play her. And Mr. Wolfington asked Mr. Scorsese if he had a script. He said no. He gave that up a ways back. So Mr. Wolfington was on his own, and when they were looking for actresses, they came across Miss Del Anna's portrayals in various films. She looks a lot like her. Very good actress, and so this is the one that they gave the role to. He teamed up with a screenwriter who was prevalent in some of the other projects he worked with. His name is Rod Barr, and Mr. Wolfington and him went to Italy and Rome. It was about 2019, I guess, or whatever, right before COVID, and to research her life and to see what's going on. Mother Cabrini was born in 1850 in the province of Lodi. That's in the Lombardy region of Italy. And she died 1917. December 22nd, 1917, she died in Chicago. She was born on July 15th in 1850, and she died in Chicago. And then I think it was maybe 20 years later, maybe, that she became a saint. She was beatified by the Vatican, and they held a parade and a celebration for her in Italy at the time. America's first saint, because she became an American citizen while she was here. This film again just covers one part of her experience in the United States, because she not only was prevalent in New York City, also in parts of New York State as well, but she did work in the Philadelphia area, Chicago, Denver, Seattle, and New Orleans. And all these places she founded orphanages, schools, hospitals, clinics, all kinds of things to help the poor and the needy. And it's an extraordinary accomplishment on her part. And so this film gives you an idea of what she was doing in the Five Points area of Lower Manhattan. Now, this film, I asked Mr. Wolfington, because when you see the movie, it's very detailed. The director is very good at providing, an eye for detail at that time. So he really captures the essence of the slum that she was going to go to in New York City. And I asked him, did you film this with blue screen? I thought maybe they made up the backgrounds by computer animation or something, and then had her, appear in front, because this is what you always see nowadays in so many movies being made. And he said, no, this was done by set construction. They actually recreated the slum of Manhattan, and they filmed it in certain sections, cities that still captured elements of the Victorian era, late Victorian area, Buffalo, New York, and Niagara Falls here in the United States. And they also filmed parts of it in Italy. But to construct sets like this must have been quite expensive. And the film cost about $50 million to make. So this was a serious undertaking on his part to really give you a full story of Mother Cabrini. And there's a couple scenes I want to mention to you. The film, again, I recommend you seeing the movie. And maybe there'll be a sequel to cover other things she did in parts of the United States. But the first minutes of the movie I thought was very impressive. It shows a little boy. I'm going to try not to give away too much of it, but you should know that it had a little boy's trying to get help, medical care for his mother, and he can't speak English. And this is this is at the turn of this is right around the late 1880s. And so the film kind of begins with this idea about what it was like to be Italian in New York. And Italians were an immigrant group that came, and they were swarthy, they were darker skinned, no connection at all to the English language. And so there was this air of anti-Italianism at the time. And to the credit of Mr. Wolfington and Mr. Monteverdi and everybody else involved in this film, they did not shy away from that. They presented how the Italians were treated back then, and how it made it difficult for Mother Cabrini to do the right thing that she wanted. She originally wanted to go to China when she was a nun. She headed a mission. She headed a convent there in Italy, and they ran an orphanage, and she wanted to go to China, and she met with Pope Leo. And he said, no, don't go to China. Go to America, because the Italians need you there. The Italian immigrants, they don't have a church. They don't have any place to go to worship. And then when she showed up, she realized it wasn't so much a church that they needed, but there are many kids without parents who are dying from influenza and other sicknesses, cholera and other things. High crime. Young girls were being put into prostitution. The drinking water was contaminated. The tenements were overcrowded, unhealthy, and these little children were They weren't learning how to read. They couldn't write. They weren't being taken care of. And so this is what she saw was important. And so this is why she began to start an orphanage and then a school. And then you see her start a hospital because the doctor is visiting the orphans and they're sick and they're dying. And he's saying, you know, it's great that you have some place to care for them, but they need health care, they need medical care. And not only do the Italians need medical care, but there's still a lot of poor Irish and other immigrants that need it also. And so this is what led her to do that. And she's faced with roadblocks put in place by the archdiocese there of New York, Archbishop Corrigan. He's played by David Morse, and the film was very fair to him because he does help her. He gives her his own money, not a lot, mind you, but tells her, "I don't want you collecting donations from the Irish. You have to go to the Italians." Well, all the Italians are poor, so how is she going to get the money? But nevertheless, she goes ahead and pursues that. And she faces most of her pushback from the powers that be in New York, by the mayor, his administration, tries to subvert her every step of the way. And then when she finally has enough money to take the kids from an orphanage in a very dangerous and dirty place in Manhattan, bring it further into the city, she finds a vacant place for her to bring the kids there. It's the neighbors that are there, the well-to-do who don't want the Italians moving in. And so she faces this pushback there, and the film captures that. Mr. Wolfington told me that he knew a lot about Mother Cabrini, but they were surprised to learn that when they went to Italy to do research on her, that it was the Italian Parliament that gave her money to help her start the orphanage. And she actually went to Italy, and she made a speech on the floor of the Italian Parliament, and this is an important scene in the film as well. So this is where the movie, if you really get a sense of who she is and what she's all about. And it was interesting, what they show in the movie also is that when she gets the kids in the orphanage, she immediately starts to teach them English. And she begins to teach them also American history. And they have to learn how to say the national anthem. And she was very patriotic. Here's a woman who was not from Italy, who's not from the United States, I should say, comes from Italy and embraces our country, embraces our culture. She eventually becomes an American citizen. But what Mr. Wolfington told me was, this is something that she insisted upon having. She insisted upon having one of the nuns become a seamstress. And she made sure that all the kids wore nice clothes because she wanted to give them pride in how they looked and who they were. She really wanted them to come from, she wanted them to really move up in American society. And that was one of the things she did as well. So, you know, she's a hero to Catholicism. She's a heroic Italian American. But more than that, she's a heroic, just a heroic American because when she comes here, all the country's settled, the states are all in place. We're kind of coming out of this agrarian period. She's way ahead of the progressives and anybody else who comes along, because her focus is on where the needs are, and the needs were in the cities. It was the cities that had been neglected, that had been run down. It was the cities that were poor, sick, and violent. And she was going to change that. And she did. She did an amazing job. Primo, the cover feature on her back in 2019. And this is a photograph you see of her here, I think a few years before she passed away, actually. And it was amazing to research her legacy and to find out all the things that she did. How she became a saint. Now, she did a lot of good work, but to become a saint, you have to have miracles attributed to her. And here we had a section of the magazine. You can see it right there. It just gives you an idea of the people that were involved with her miracles. And this young man here, uh, his name was Peter Joseph Smith, and he was a baby. He was born in 1921, born March 14th, 1921, in New York City. And it was Mother Cabrini's hospital. And after birth, by law, he was supposed to wash out the eyes with a solution. And 1% of the solution was to be silver nitrate, which was to clean out the bacteria, whatever it is that you had there in the eye. Well, the nurse made a mistake. She took the source material, which was 50% silver nitrate, and put that in the baby's eyes. And immediately was screaming, yelling, panic throughout the entire ward there in the hospital. And there's a good chance that this baby's going to lose his eyes. So the mother superior, Bacigalupo, Teresa Bacigalupo, told everyone to ask Mother Cabrini to help save this child's eyes. And sure enough, a miracle occurred. He was able to retain his eyesight. And I don't know if you can see it here, but you can see his eyes. He had scars or blemishes right around his eyes. And he made a speech one time after she became a saint. He said he was living proof that miracles do happen. And the other miracle attributed to her was this woman here, Sister Delfina Grazioli. Now, she was in Seattle, where Mother Cabrini began an orphanage, and there was a church founded there. And Sister Grazioli had a stomach problem. She didn't have the bacteria you need to properly digest your food, and she was always in pain. She had a tough time keeping the food down, and she was in her 20s, and she joined the convent right before Mother Cabrini passed away. And a lot of the nuns didn't want her to come in there because she thought she was unhealthy. She wouldn't be able to, do all the work needed. And Mother Cabrini said, I was a sick woman, and look at all the things I did. So she has faith. She can get things done. Well, she began to get very sick, and she was on her deathbed, and she had a dream, and Mother Cabrini was in a dream. Mother Cabrini says, I'm not going to let you go. Basically, I'm going to save your life. And sure enough, the next day she could drink water, she could eat a sugar almond, and she began to drink orange juice. And a week later, she was able to eat a full meal, first time in a decade, and in a couple of decades for this young woman. Since childhood, she could actually digest her food. And so she attributed that miracle to Mother Cabrini. She lived on, and passed away naturally. And there are other miracles attributed to Mother Cabrini outside of the United States. I think in South America, maybe back in Italy. But all this work she did, and the miracles, this is why she became a saint. Now, what we did in the magazine also, we looked at her legacy, and we looked at the shrines that she has. She has about what I'm counting here, I think 6 main shrines devoted to her, where you can see relics of her. 3 are in Italy, and then 3 are here in the United States. And you have the St. Frances Cabrini Shrine up in Washington Heights, New York. And then you have the National Shrine of St. Frances Cabrini in Chicago, Illinois. Now that's a church that they have in Chicago, and they built a condominium complex around it. So where the lobby is, you go inside the lobby, and you go to the church, and there you can see some of her relics. Her body, or the skeleton remains of her body, are in Washington Heights, but I think there's some parts of her hair and some other things, some bones are there in these other shrines. And then you have the Golden, Colorado. And she had an orphanage in Denver for a long time for Italian girls who didn't have parents. And that ceased to exist, I think, in the mid-70s. But it's a beautiful outdoor shrine they have with a beautiful statue of Christ. And there's sections where you can go, like the Rosary, where you can pray and meditate. And the fact that orphanage is no longer in existence is indicative of her legacy. Because if you wanted to find remnants of her work, there's a woman who created hospitals, orphanages, schools. Not going to find too many of them left. It was either they ceased function or they were incorporated in some other organization. That's true of some. That's true of the hospitals she created. But it's indicative of her legacy in one way is that it's like with the 5 points. If you wanted to see the 5 points today, you wouldn't see slums. You probably see high-priced condominiums, stores and boutiques, and probably for you to buy a condominium there would be maybe $1 million or more. But this is indicative of the fact that she went to these places. She helped to solve. She was a serious reason why the poverty was solved there. The problems of poverty, the problems of dispossession was alleviated so much that then you could have working classes, middle classes move there, then the developers could move in and build it up. And this is what happens. So you see this in New York, you see this in Chicago, in Colorado, New Orleans, all over the place. She was able to alleviate the root causes of poverty there, the suffering of people. Once that's gone, though, other people move in, people's lives improve. Then they move out eventually. Of course, they're going to move to the suburbs or to the countryside. And then developers move in and build it up. And this is what happens. The hospital's successful, then a bigger nonprofit organization emerged together. And so the name Cabrini is no longer there. It's part of some other type of organization. And this is just, the story of the United States in a big, in a way. And it's also the story of people who sacrificed tremendously for us. And I think it's so important that we keep the name alive, keep the legacy alive, make sure that future generations know that people like Mother Cabrini came before us and made our lives a lot better. So much so that we can live better than almost anybody on the planet today. So, Mother Cabrini, the film Cabrini, it's there in movie theaters. Here in Washington, D.C., it's going to be at the Georgetown movie theater, but you can see it anywhere. I'm sure it'll be on streaming soon. It's a very worthwhile film to see. It's a good movie. It's well made. And it's well produced. And I want to thank Mr. Wolfington for his efforts in bringing this film together. He did receive funds from Italian American organizations. I know NIAF had contributed money to him. That's the National Italian American Foundation. I'm assuming the Sons of Italy did also. Conference of Presidents of major Italian American organizations. I know that we were able to see a preview of the film some time ago. So I'm sure that Basil Russo and others had supported the film. But this is a very important film to see, and I think you'll be enlightened and entertained as well. So that's very good. So anyway, this is Truby Chiaviello with Primo magazine. Our issue, our back, I don't think we have any back issues left of Mother Cabrini because this was something that was sold out very quickly. Her legacy is still alive and well with us, and we're so grateful to her. And we ask her to pray for us. Pray for her health, and pray for her well-being. God love her and God bless all that she did for us. And anyway, Truby Chiaviello, Primo magazine, and thank you. And until we see you again, Mother Cabrini it is. See that movie. It's a very good one. Thanks.